Welcome to episode 164 of the Actual Astronomy Podcast. I'm Chris, and joining me is Shane. We are amateur astronomers who love looking up the nighttime sky, and this podcast is for anyone else who likes going out under the stars. Yay, we have some sleet today.
Yeah, the seasons are changing here, and it's very apparent outside.
Yeah, how was your week?
It was good. No real observing. We had clear nights, but we had a lot of windy nights. So as a result, a little bit of naked eye in the backyard, but I did not take any optics out once this week. How about you?
Yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, even if it had been not as windy, I probably wouldn't have. I mean, we did have some. I mean, it was clear. It was just super, super windy, and starting on a new project for my day job and teaching my class, once a week, and some other things kind of are occupying my time as well. Like during the full moon, I tend to try to take a little bit of a break from observing. So it's good. It's good to kind of do a few things like clean up the house a little and stuff like that. And, maybe put a telescope or two away,
Yeah, I'm starting to get into my winter mode where I'm looking at all of my gear that I have all over the house.
Yeah.
Because during the warmer months I use it all just, at different points. And I have to start thinking about storing some of it now for winter because it just won't get as much use.
Yeah. Yeah. I just like looking at it. I do like looking at the gear, and it's sort of this bone of contention around our place. So I have my new Masuyama sitting here, and one thing I bought, I haven't used this yet. I didn't plan to talk on it or anything. Is maybe I told you this. I bought one of the Antares twist lock adapters. Did I tell you about that?
Oh, you know what? It was you sent me a photo, either a text message or an email.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
It's really nice.
Okay. So what is it?
So what this is an adapter for taking your 1.25 inch eyepieces and adapting them so that they'll fit in your 2-inch focuser, whether it's a 2-inch mirror diagonal or any 2-inch focuser. So I do have some 1.25 inch adapters, but there's a couple things I don't care for about them. So one I have is super old. I don't even know where it came from. It's brass, and I don't know if maybe I was observing. I had some older observing friends way back, and I wondered if maybe we had gotten some of our adapters mixed up at night or something, because it's brass and it has like a brass threaded screw. And it also isn't designed to work with Barlow. So the only thing I really use that one for is basically a plug in my telescope. I just use it as a plug because, I shouldn't even say it's not designed to use with Barlows. It's not designed to use with any eyepieces with a very long barrel at all. It's really like designed maybe to be used with like orthoscopics and smaller eyepieces like that to, one, give them some weight so your balance isn't as far off, and then two, it really holds them in quite firmly, but longer barrel eyepieces bottom out, so they sit really high up, and you can't put a Barlow in. It just sits ridiculously high up because it has like a ring around the bottom so that your Barlow, maybe it wouldn't go through and strike your diagonal or something like that. I don't know, but it's not great. And then I just have one that's like a super cheap one that I got I think with my William Optics telescope or something like that. And it's okay, but it's glossy. And so it kind of has almost like a bit of a slip to it. And so the top isn't totally flat. Now it works okay. But one of the things is that, as you know, when you're out observing quite a bit, it's nice to have more than one adapter.
Yeah. Especially like if you're swapping eyepieces in and out, it's just sort of one less thing.
Yeah. So I had done some digging around because I was thinking about getting another adapter, and then I bought one. and it just didn't work at all. I should sell it because I don't know what it's designed for, but
it doesn't work at all. So I'm going to sell it.
Well, I'm maybe
for your
somebody,
situation.
well, like I'm sure somebody, it's called a low profile adapter, and I looked it up and I bought it, and but it has, I don't know why it has this, but the screw on it for like locking the eyepiece down is kind of like halfway down the barrel, like the barrel that would sit below the, so it must be designed for some sort of focuser that has like a slot or something. I don't know. It's strange anyway. I've never seen anything like it. And it's not really apparent if you're just kind of looking. It's sort of a generic one. It wasn't really expensive.
Okay.
I think it was only like $10 or something. So I wasn't looking to spend a lot of money. And then I was like, well, clearly maybe I should spend a few dollars. So this one was about $30, I think. But it's from a guy I kind of know, Glenn Spears. He makes these at Antares Instruments. And I've met Glenn a few times. He's great. Telescope, I guess, sort of manufacturer / importer here in Canada. He's sort of the person who makes the Spears Waller eyepieces. But anyway, he makes these Antares twist lock adapters, and they're nearly Takahashi like. They're sort of almost in that same sort of like if you took the Takahashi way of doing things and combined it with the Bader, you'd get something like this. It's sort of like a nice cross between them. It's sort of all metal and aluminum, and it twists. It has a very nice feel to it. The bottom has a little rough spot. That's the only small thing. But yeah, so it's a twist lock. So you put your eyepiece in, and then it twists to firmly hold it in place, and then you can untwist it to release it. And why I like this design is that I think it should work pretty good in the cold weather, because with the smaller adapters, they have those little screws. And basically the best way to use those is commit to what you're going to have in that adapter that night and get it set up before you go out in the cold. Whereas this one, I think I can unscrew and rethread the adapter because the whole top of it turns. So it's about 2 inches across. So the screw on this basically is 2 inches. And then it has like a giant hole in it where your eyepiece sits. And it doesn't take a lot to lock it, and it doesn't take a lot to unlock it. So that's really nice. Like it's a twist of maybe, I'm going to say maybe 4 millimeters. So you don't have to twist it too far. And it holds it well enough. It's not like a super tight hold like some of the Bader stuff is, but this is much less expensive. And in general, these get really, really good reviews. And so what a lot of people have done is because they're only about $30 or just under, a lot of people go and buy almost like a set of these, like for whatever they're using. So I have 3 Barlows that I use. I use a 2X, a 3X, and a 1.6X. And so I could probably just end up getting 3 of these and sticking one of these on each of the Barlows, and then maybe keeping another one handy for when I'm swapping eyepieces in and out of the diagonal. So I'm kind of hoping this kind of is a little bit of a game changer once I actually get to try it out. But this is sort of more for cold weather observing. So it's sort of something I've purchased with it in mind. And it looks like it's threaded for filters. Mm-hmm. Although it seems kind of rough in one spot. I might need to run some like steel wool around the inside of it, but it might be okay. There's just one little rough spot. But other than that, yeah, it looks really, really nice. It feels really nice. It's not very heavy. But yeah, I think it should work pretty good in the cold weather. Have you started thinking about much more about your cold weather observing and what you might be looking to get or looking to do under the cold, dark skies of winter?
Well, a little bit. So, a while back, I was talking a lot about that Tasco 10TE telescope that I bought. It's a very old, long focal length achromat refractor. This thing was made in the 60s, but has very good optics. So I acquired that late in the spring this year, with the intention of using it more so in the wintertime. And I bought some things to make it a little more modern. So I replaced the very old 0.965-inch focuser on there with a modern 2-inch Crayford focuser. And then I also put like modern rings on there and a modern Vixen dovetail so I could put it on modern mounts. Mm-hmm. So it's ready to go. I experimented with it just a couple weeks ago. I tried it on my Stellar View M2C mount and a very lightweight aluminum tripod, and it wasn't very good. The weight of that telescope is not significant. It's a fairly light telescope. It's 1,200 millimeters long. That's the focal length. So the moment arm on this thing is significant. And as a result, you do need a fairly robust mount / tripod, to make it stable. So I think what I'll end up doing, my plan actually this past week was to use it again, but to use it on my Sky T mount that I have. And it's on a much more robust tripod as well, just to see how that mount does. I think it'll do quite well. And that'll end up being my winter setup. I think what I'll do is similar to last year. Like last year, I was using that Frankenscope, the Tasco 152 power, which was a 60 millimeter long focal length achromat. I basically just left it in the garage on the mount, so it was easy in and out, and it was already acclimatized then to the cooler temperatures. Now the 10TE is more aperture, 76.2 millimeter aperture. So I'm quite excited to use it. The little bit that I have used it, I've been really, really impressed. And kind of a cool thing about it is I can use my bino viewer natively without any of the magnifiers in there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's kind of a neat option. And the reason for that is part of the focal length originally was achieved with it was a telescoping focuser. So yeah, it was really weird. Like the focuser had 2 tubes that would come out of it that would extend back, I would say 12 to 15 inches, which added to the focal length and sort of served as a bit of a coarse focus for the telescope. And then you would use the focuser wheels to achieve your proper focus. So now that I've, replaced it with a modern focuser, if I'm just using like a mono viewing setup, one eyepiece, I have a couple of extenders that come out of the focuser to achieve the focal length needed to reach focus. But as a result, you remove all of those adapters, and then a bino viewer can come to focus natively, which is awesome. So I'm excited to use that. So that'll probably be my primary backyard setup. If I'm going to your site, a little bit more of a darker place, I think it's just, astronomy as per normal. Like I'd probably bring out the TAC 76 or maybe the 120 ED and observe with that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I was thinking, in a way, I've been thinking about getting a Sky T or similar mount for a while, because I do have the Takahashi Lapides, but it's one, it's somewhat of a rare mount, and then 2, there's a little bit of awkwardness to it, simply because kind of have to reach up and adjust it a little bit more than what I'd like to. So I've been kind of thinking about that, or maybe getting a slightly different AZ mount. And what I'm looking for maybe is one that can carry a slightly heavier load. So just wondering though, like how smooth is the Sky T mount? Like I feel like whenever I've looked through it, I think you've had it locked down so that the scope isn't moving around too much, which makes a lot of sense. But I just wonder how smooth is that mount with a small telescope on that? Like, is there still a lot of resistance, or does the Sky T can it be pretty smooth to kind of pan around?
That's a good question. I'm just trying to think if I've used it with a lighter weight telescope, and I can't remember. But it definitely has more resistance than the Stellar View M2C. Like that Stellar View, if you back off the resistance on both axes, like there's no resistance. It just goes, and it's very, very smooth. I think one of the reasons the Sky T is a little more, heavier duty or more robust for heavier loads is because there is a little more resistance there.
Mm-hmm.
So, using a heavier telescope would probably be of benefit. I don't know. I would have to try with a lighter weight telescope. I found it to be super, like in all of my use cases. It's been really smooth and precise, and like none of that sort of stiction backlash that you get,
Okay.
under high magnifications.
Yeah.
And I like the clutch system that they have. Like there's a little lever that you just swing on each axis to engage or disengage the clutch. And when it's engaged, then you have the slow motion controls, which work really well.
Hmm. Yeah, like I'd be curious sometime, and I don't know if you'd be up for this or not. I mean, we've talked this before, but I'd almost be interested to try, or would be interested to try my 5 inch on it sometime,
Oh
just
yeah, yeah.
just to see what kind of shoes do you have on it? Do you have the Vixen shoes, or using the Losmandy shoes? Did you replace the shoes on? I know a lot of people put ADM adapters on there, but I was just curious, like, what's your setup like on that mount? I haven't looked at it that closely.
Yeah. So both Axis have Vixen shoes. Um, I did. So it was just by luck. Like the shoes that come with it are kind of small. Uh, the one side, excuse me, the one side of the T mount is kind of designed for like a lighter weight telescope, so it doesn't need a significant shoe. But the other side, where you would be putting like your bigger, larger, heavier telescope, it was one of those shoes that's only like maybe 2.5 inches wide or whatever, like one of those tiny ones. And I just didn't like that very much. And it just turned out that it has the same bolt pattern as the Explore Scientific Twilight 2 mount, which I also have. And I
No.
had bought an ADM Vixen shoe for that. So I took that shoe off and I put it on the Sky T. So it's, one of those, I don't know, 5 or 6 inch wide shoes. So it's much more substantial. And that's on there. So yeah, it'll accept Vixen, and that shoe adds a lot of stability as well.
Huh. Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I kind of think that mount is one of the better, I don't know, like full feature alt as mounts that can take some weight. For the price, it's really, really good. You can dual mount. You can do counterweights on the one axis, and you can do counterweights two different ways, like extending out on a horizontal
Yeah.
or having it on the vertical. And both have, sort of use cases depending on what you're doing. So that's awesome to be able to have that kind of feature. And then to have slow motion controls. Not everybody cares for them, but if you want them, they're there and they work really well.
Yeah. The reason why I'm thinking about this is, as you may know, I've sent off my primary mount, which is the Skywatcher AZ GTI, which I loved, but for some reason, after exactly 1 year and 1 day of use, the azimuth axis seemed to bind, or something very similar to that, and so it's gone out for repair. And then I was thinking, well, I wonder if I should look at getting maybe a mount that could carry a slightly larger load that I could kind of just leave out or whatever, because that AZGTI being an electronic mount, I have some, reservations over just kind of leaving that out, even though it's not a very expensive mount. It's a really great mount for the price. I'd be a little bit concerned about just kind of leaving it out and set up in our environment, especially like, when you have days like today where you're going to get a lot of moisture and humidity around, and I don't have it, I don't have any sort of structure or anything. So, I was thinking maybe I should just get something like that I could just kind of leave up, and then not have to worry about setting up a mount as much. Just be able to go out and put a scope up without spending too much money on the mount. At the same time, having a pretty good stable mount that can handle a variety of the instruments that I have.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's, fingers crossed, if we have some good observing this week, I will pull out Sky T in the backyard, and I'll put the Tax 76 on there because that's one of my lighter weight telescopes, and I'll just see how smooth it is. But I can also, next time we observe out at your site, I can bring it out and we can give it a run.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Appreciate it. Yeah, or just throw my 100 millimeter up there too. I mean, anything that has a little bit more weight to it. I'd just be curious to see how smooth it was to pan. Like, I guess what I'm wondering about is how small an instrument can go on that and still make it relatively smooth. Like, could I put my 60 on it? Would it still be smooth with just the little 60, or would like sort of the 100 millimeter or so class kind of be sort of the bottom end of it? And I can always mount my 50 millimeter on my 100 millimeter, and I'm sure that would be fine too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And one of the neat things too, I didn't mention. So on the one side of that Sky T mount, you have the kind of the more heavyweight side, to take a bigger telescope, and it's a side mount, and it's just like any other alt-az mount. Now the other shoe on the other side, it's not a side mount. It's like I don't know. It's almost like a video mount. Like you put it on top. Am I describing this well? I don't know.
Yeah. I know what it's like.
Yeah. But anyway, that has its own like alt-az axis as well that you can unlock and have it separate from the Sky T like main axis, alt-az axis. So it's kind of neat in that regard. And I'm wondering now, like, that might actually be a little easier to use for just a lightweight setup, but I don't know. I guess the only way to find out is to try.
Yeah, and it would be awesome to be able to play with it a bit. Just to try it out. Like, since you already sort of took the plunge, because there's a few different models floating around by I think they're all basically the same, but you can buy a stripped down version and then just add your own plates to it, or bolt right on to the sort of hockey pucks that are on the side. So. I know that Telescope Service over in I think they're in Germany, and I bought stuff from them before. Great company to deal with, and I know they sell a version of that sort of under their Telescope Service brand name, and it's a little bit less. But what you have to do when you buy it is you have to be prepared to outfit it yourself, tripod and put your own plate adapters on and that sort of thing. But considering kind of where I am in the hobby, buying a bit of a roll your own mount would be totally fine. I don't mind looking at I might put a pier in out there or something like that. So then maybe I can just stick it on the pier without having to go through the expense of getting another tripod. And then just be able to modify that. And it would probably end up being around like, less than $500 or something like that. And that would be pretty awesome to be able to have a higher capacity mount anyway. And then one that didn't sort of break the bank, and I could just leave sort of permanently mount it. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that this one would meet your needs, but we'll play around with it, see how it works.
Yeah, that'd be cool. It was great having Mark Radici on last week. That was a lot of fun.
It was, yeah. It was a great discussion. I loved the question about, why do we use such small apertures? And why do we seem to, instead of like getting, it's really reverse aperture fever. It's like, we started with big telescopes, and every 6 months we buy smaller telescopes. I thought that was a good question. So I really enjoyed the conversation, and I love when we have guests on it. Chris, I like talking to you, but sometimes it's nice to have a different voice here.
Yeah. This is sort of the PG rated version. We rib each other pretty good. But yeah, I had a nice email exchange with Mark afterwards, because probably we ended up we could have probably done 4 hours, I think, and now that would have been a little bit ridiculous. But I know you had questions and I had more questions, so I actually ended up we had a bit more of a discussion after the recording. And I always say this, and I wish there was I kind of wish we had a B-roll. I wish you could do like 2 recordings, right? When you're doing an episode. I wish we could just sort of, when we start, I wish we could do a recording, and then I wish we could have sort of the extended version of, when we connect, and then when we actually stop that recording for the sort of official episode, and then we have these further discussions, because sometimes sometimes the things that the guests say after we record are, one, either so funny that I get mad at myself for not having kept the tape rolling and not telling them, or B, like in the case of Mark, like it was really like super interesting, like some of his other interests in astronomy and experiences doing some of the YouTubing stuff that he's been involved in. But in my exchange with him, I kind of said, it'd be great to have him on again. So maybe we can have him on again, like in a couple months or something like that. Would be pretty fun.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah.
One thing we chatted about, Mark and I, though, was like I've kind of been kicking around the idea of maybe an observatory, or like that sounds so fancy for actually what I'm thinking about when I look at my little sketches here. They're just this is basically this would be like a wooden box that has a top that can be taken off one way or another. Yeah. So, when you say observatory, people just have that immediate flash image of like a mountaintop with a white dome on it. And this would be not that.
a little bit less. Yeah.
A little bit less. Sometimes less is more, though. Right.
That's true. Agreed.
So, and he kind of had done something similar. I think he said that his roll-off had been a storage shed that he had hired a crew to modify. Am I remembering that correct? It's something like that.
Yeah, maybe. I can't remember now if it was a build from scratch. Yeah.
I know that he's done some modifications to it, and we chatted a little bit about those in the podcast. So either it was a shed that he had modified, or basically it's a shed that's a roll off, and then he's had it further modified. He'd gone to a cement pier over a steel pier recently. But anyway, I was curious to see photos of his wheels. So there's a few things that I really don't understand very well. And in the world, many things I don't understand well, one of them being construction, clearly. And so he sent me photos of his wheels, which are the same wheels that I'd kind of, gleaned from other things online that seem to indicate like, oh, these are the wheels you get, but they're definitely the wheels he has. And so I was like, okay, that's good. Cause he was telling me like his roll's super easy. And from all things that I've been able to gather, well, I want a roof that rolls off really easy. You and I even chatted a little bit about this over email this week. Like if I do this, it's got to roll super easy. And then there's some other stuff that I just, I'm a little bit baffled or concerned about. Like one is like people say you have to go below the frost line. And I think our frost line is about at the mantle of the earth here. So that could be a challenge.
Well,
when the magma starts coming up, you're at the frost line.
Yeah. I think that's only though really like 2 or 3 feet down.
I looked it up, and this is what it says, and I can believe it.
Okay.
It says it's 72 inches.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's what, 6 feet?
Yeah. That's twice as deep as I thought. Wow. Okay.
Saskatoon is 96. Which is just a couple 100 kilometers north. And I know there was one year here where we didn't have a ton of snow, and it was really cold. It was like minus 30 for a month.
Yeah.
And my house is very well insulated. It's not a super old house, not a new house now, but it was pretty much new when we bought it a dozen or so years ago. And it's insulated right to the foundation, right to the bottom of the foundation, I should say. And I remember it was getting into the end of February, and I put my hand on the floor, which is our basement floor would be at least 6 feet. No, about maybe 5 3/4 below grade, almost maybe 6 feet below grade, I guess, getting close to it anyway. And on the center bottom of our basement floor, I'm pretty sure was below zero. Like it was unbelievably cold. and the house was getting so cold. I couldn't believe it. So I was pretty sure that the ground had frozen under our house. That only happened 1 year. And I guess that would be an anomaly. So maybe like that 72-inch rule is just like, on those sort of once every dozen years or 20 years, maybe, that you'll get a winter where it goes down that deep. So I don't know. What would your thoughts be on depth?
Oof, yeah, well, probably the 5 to 6 feet is what you'd want to shoot for. Yeah.
And then I was thinking that hill is not very big, right? So I was thinking probably the whole top of that hill freezes no matter how deep you go.
Yeah, that's possible.
Because I think the top of the hill is only like, I don't know, maybe it's 20 feet across up there and, 60 or 70 feet in the other direction. But it kind of sticks up and, it's sort of open and, like it goes, it's about, I don't know how high that hill is, maybe like 16 feet or something like that. So I could imagine that whole hilltop just freezes straight through, like, I think the whole thing just freezes, which could be good. Maybe it just wouldn't shift because the whole thing is just like a solid block. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm no engineer, so I have no idea.
No. So anyway, yeah, I've been kind of kicking that around, looking at some ideas, but it would have to be pretty simple. So anyway, maybe maybe we'll see. Maybe that'll be in the future. So let's see. Yeah. We do have a listener email, but I don't know if you have anything to add before we get to that.
Yeah, I do. So just on this topic of observatories, something I've decided just recently is going to be a winter project.
This sounds exciting.
Yeah. So how should I start this? Well, the project is I want to build an observatory in a box, but it's like my Pelican case box, something that you can grab in one hand and it's everything you need. So telescope, diagonal eyepiece, maybe filters, mount, tripod, and even the ability to maybe look at the sun. So like a Herschel wedge or something like that, some kind of filter there. And the idea, or what I want to have, is it's in one case that I can grab with one hand, and I can even take it as checked luggage on a flight, if I wanted to. So there's a lot of parameters here. And what kind of inspires me about, or to do this is, I think a lot of people that get into this hobby at some point come across a Questar telescope in a magazine or online or whatever. And I think they're beautiful, beautiful telescopes. And I've always been so fascinated with their observatory in a box concept, where you buy this, little 3.5-inch Maksutov telescope, and it has the tripod, the mount, the eyepieces, all in this real nice leather case. And then the telescope itself is super cool that, at the back, like where you have your focuser and the eyepiece, there's a bunch of levers and, switches. And what these things do is, like, one will engage a white light filter for observing the sun. Another one will engage a Barlow. And I'm not sure, there might even be a few other things that it does. But anyway, the idea is you've got basically everything you'd ever need to observe almost anything in the sky, just right there. And you grab it, you go, you set it up, and you enjoy your observing. And I think they're just those Questars, especially the ones that have the constellations printed on the dew shield and the tube. I think they're just amazing in terms of beauty, but they're super expensive. Like a little 3.5-inch Questar is probably in the thousands of dollars, I think. And anyway, I've been thinking recently, because you and I, Chris, we have our little 50 millimeter telescopes, we have little 60 millimeter telescopes. The concept of figuring out how to get that into like a carry-on luggage sized container, but with a tripod and mount, really intrigues me. So I'm starting to research what that will look like. And I think I've got it mostly down pat. Like, I think the telescope will be the 50 FL, the Borg 50 FL. I think the mount will be one of those little Borg fork mounts, single arm fork mounts. They're tiny, they're light. The tripod is what I'm just sort of trying to figure out right now. Something that will be stable enough, but that folds down to like 20 inches or less. So I've got a few ideas there, but nothing firmed up. And then really like a zoom eyepiece and a Barlow. I've got the Herschel wedge. So anyway, I'm going to start putting this together to see what it looks like. And I'm kind of excited for it. And really like a 3.5-inch Maksutov, like the central obstruction is going to be right around that 30% sort of size. So effectively it's operating almost as like a 60 millimeter refractor. So I think the views I would get would be somewhat similar. Certainly wider field, but also then losing out on that focal length for some real high power views of solar system objects, or really anything, I suppose. So anyway, you're building a real proper observatory, and I'm building like a suitcase observatory.
This is going to be basically a suitcase observatory where the lid comes off and the telescope is just there.
Yeah.
So sorry, I just want to back up for a second. So are you gonna get like one of these little 3.5-inch Cassegrains or
no. I like the inspiration is the Questar. I will use like one of my existing refractors for this.
Oh, okay.
Like probably my Borg FL, the 50 FL, or maybe my William Optic Zenith Star 61 millimeter. I think either one of those will be interchangeable in the box. Like it'll be pretty easy to put either one in.
Yeah. Okay. You know who did get a Questar recently?
Who?
Is Randall, who's been a guest of ours before, and the curator for the Telescope Museum in Ontario. And so I guess I didn't send you the photo. I should send you the photo of him and Rudy. Rudy, I think, coordinate getting him the telescope or gifted him the telescope. Rudy is a very generous person who's really the inspiration and the driving force behind the Telescope Museum. And then he also gave me my tripod years ago. We're sort of observing friends from way back in the day, and he had made a tripod at one point in time, and it was just sitting around, and he saw me with a lesser tripod than he thought I should have. So he gave me his old tripod, which is cool because he made it the year I was born. But anyway, he recently gifted Randall a Questar. I think it's a 3.5-inch, and yeah, I should send you the photo of that. It's pretty cool little scope. So,
yeah, wow, that's incredible. Looking through a Questar on my bucket list. I would love to see one in the field and see it in operation, or if by chance I ever had an opportunity to add that to the collection, I might do that as well, because I just think they're phenomenal little instruments. And if anybody is unfamiliar with the Questar, go check them out. It's just the coolest design ever.
Yeah, and one of the there's been other designs that are similar. But one of the challenges, like especially here that we have, is that so some of them use like glues and plastics and other materials like that, which is very common. But we live in a very extreme environment, and so I was a little bit concerned that you were going to go and buy one of these other ones, and not really that they're less or anything like that. They're awesome little scopes, and people certainly buy them and have had a lot of great views and success through them. But here you'd have to be pretty careful with them because like our extreme heat in the summer being, sort of knocking on positive 45 degrees Celsius, not including the humidity, which hopefully we often don't have when we do hit those temperatures. And then in the winter, negative 45 degrees Celsius. I think a few days in a car at 45 plus would probably dissolve the glue, and things would probably begin to come apart. So when we're picking gear, that is one of the reasons why we tend towards the refractors, because they tend not to be as impacted by those kind of temperature extremes as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, they're gorgeous. I'm just on their website right now, or I guess it's Astronomics, but yeah, anywhere's from, it looks like kind of $5,000 and up US dollars for a Questar.
You know what I like about those so much is the aesthetics, the design of it. It has like those, I think it has like constellations or something. It's either on the dew shield or on the body itself. I can't remember.
Yeah, it's on both. Well,
Yeah.
you can get, like, they have a couple versions. There's some without any of that on there, but the ones that I really like have the constellations printed.
Yeah. I think
really
they say
nice.
it has a star map. Not that that would be useful. I just think it looks really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool.
The only other telescope I think that competes with like just kind of the aesthetic beauty of these is the I think they're the Moonraker telescopes.
Oh yeah.
Those are incredible.
Yeah, I spent a long time. Looking at those online. They have some really cool. They're like, you know, they're almost like steampunk / Victorian telescopes. But apparently they're quite good and usable. They don't make their own optics, and what they do is they make the tubes and the housings and everything, and they do a couple really awesome things that I've often thought about maybe trying to get just for my own instruments. So one is they have these beautiful counterweight bars. I'm not sure if you've ever looked at those before, where like sort of on the other side of the tube rings, you know how you have your little screw holes. Well, I think they have made these counterweights. It's like a rod, and there's a counterweight that kind of can shift up and down that to help balance when you switch eyepieces, which I think would be awesome to have, especially for our small refractors, because when you go from something like your Nagler 31 to one of your orthoscopics or something, you could just simply grab that weight and then just slide it to the opposite end, and then you'd be sort of off to the races.
Yeah, that counterweight balance system that they have is phenomenal, and I've seen that used on like kind of like third party add-ons, or maybe it's even DIY stuff that other people have added to their own telescopes.
Yeah.
It looks like a super effective way to balance, for eyepiece changes. In terms of ease, right? You just release the little tension knob and slide it, and yeah, you're done.
Yeah. That looks so. Not only do they look really, really awesome, I think they're actually fairly useful telescopes, and they've put a lot of thought into the usability. There's really only two downsides to those. I think one is the cost. I think they're pretty expensive. And then I think the other thing is they don't look like feather light instruments.
No. Well, I don't know what they weigh. Well, hold on here. So I'm looking at it's they call it the Terminator class. So it's a 60 millimeter, 1000 millimeter focal length. So this would be like my
F16, I think.
Yeah. My old Tasco 70E. Yeah, 75. Yeah, I think that's the one. So this would weigh aluminum 3.5 kilograms. So that would be about,
that's not too bad.
8 pounds.
That's 8 pounds. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what that OTA would have weighed. Certainly lighter than that, but probably like, I'm guessing 4 or 5 pounds is what it weighed. So
yes, you might have to double the weight, but I mean, sort of for context, stripped down without a focuser, my 5-inch Apochromate, which is the lightest 5-inch Apochromate you can get, the Borg, weighs 3.5 kilograms without focuser.
Yeah. And then if you want brass with Moonraker, you're really doubling that rate or weight. It goes from 3.5 kilos to 7 kilos.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that starts getting. Imagine what the 8-inch would be like.
Yeah, you would need a pretty big mount for that.
Yeah. Well, we have a few minutes. Did you want to read Felipe's email?
Yeah. So Felipe from Brazil sent us an email, and it's a very cool email, but it's also really cool that we're hearing from somebody in the Southern Hemisphere. I know I'm very jealous of those skies. I wished we had easier access to that kind of stuff, but I'll live vicariously through others. So I'll kick it off here. So excuse me, dear Chris and Shane, my name is Felipe. I am from Brazil. I have just started the hobby of amateur astronomy, and I've been listening to your podcast and learning. I listened today to an episode about what to do on a cloudy night. And one thing that us listeners can do is write you about our experiences and observations. And
well, the $5 is in the mail.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Just kidding.
Yeah. So he's it's a long email, so maybe we'll just sort of summarize or skim a little bit here. So he's always been interested in the night sky. It says, I remember 13 years ago when I was an exchange student in a really small town of about 2,000 people. There's practically no light pollution and clear skies every day. So I would just stay out just looking at the stars. I didn't know any names or constellations. I was just appreciating the beauty of it. So now he lives in a center that's a little bit bigger in South America, but still has access to some pretty good skies by the sounds of it. And what's really cool is he built his own Dobsonian. So he did a bunch of research, found out all of the parts and pieces that he needed, and then became very resourceful in acquiring them. And some of it was even 3D printed. And I think where he eventually settled, I'm just taking a look here. It's a 160 millimeter reflector with a focal length of 1,300 millimeters. So that'll be a nice long focal length reflector that will provide, I think, incredible views of the planets for sure, and some really good dark sky views as well. So yeah, there's a lot of like I say, resourcefulness to try to find all of the pieces that were needed, but then also I think a little bit of modification to the plan once it was all put together, just to improve its usefulness or like kind of the mechanics of it, and sent some photos, made a really neat wood base. And what I like too about the wood base is to stabilize it. It looks like he used like some shelving L brackets, which I never would have thought of, but those are ideal for really, probably adding stability to this whole build. So awesome job.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, and I think he sent some photos. I think some of the photos may have even been through the telescope.
Yep.
Anyway, it looks really cool. Like what a beautiful instrument. And I don't think it was in Brazil, but I know there was somebody in Argentina or another South American country, and they were talking about like the import-export duties and the challenges of bringing stuff in and out. So I know sometimes in different countries and living in Canada, it's a little bit easier now. It used to be a little bit more difficult, but I know what it's like to try to get stuff, and that's why sometimes we buy stuff from Japan or from Britain or from Germany instead of from the States, because sometimes buying it from the States, you're paying doubly for the import duties and taxes, because they have to import it there and then you have to import it here. So you have to kind of watch out for that kind of stuff. I imagine it's similar in Brazil, but super cool that his solution was to roll up his sleeves and actually build a beautiful little Dobsonian telescope in the 160 millimeter size. What an awesome, great little telescope that looks like.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Yeah, cool. Well, anything else to add to this episode, Shane?
No, that's everything, Chris.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me, and thanks to everybody for listening.
Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we hope you enjoyed the show. If you are interested in more information, would like to contact us, or if you would like to support the podcast, check out our website, actualastronomy.com.